Hi crafters, I'm Trisha at Club Scrap with another really fun project. This one is called the Waterfall Wonder. And what's wonderful about it is that it's a very efficient way to create something fun, a fun feature called a waterfall on your scrapbook page. Now you might have seen waterfall cards, waterfall pages, but what's different about this is that it's a waterfall formula that allows you to make all of this from just 5 sheets of 12 by 12 paper with very little waste, and that's what we do here at Club Scrap. So I have a formula and I'm excited to share it with you. Let's get started with our ingredient list, and most of you probably have this in your stash. You need 5 sheets of paper. So I am using the beautiful colors from Club Scrap's Fly a Kite collection. So while supplies last, I can't recommend this beautiful color palette enough because look how fabulous it looks with these outdoor pictures. This happened to have been a trip to Cape Coral, Florida. And just the colors of the sky and everything works so well with this kit. And the Fly a Kite theme is super fun as well. So from the Fly a Kite kit, I only chose plain papers. That's all I needed really. So for the base, I have 2 of the blue plains. And then I'll have a light green, a dark green, and a black. So let's get started with our trimming instructions. Now 2 of the papers are trimmed exactly the same way. So if you're using a Fisker's guillotine style trimmer, this is quite capable of trimming through 2 sheets of paper at the same time, which is what we're going to do. Now if you're new to this and I'm going a little too fast for you, no worries. Just simply pause, rewind. I don't know, do we still rewind if it's on video? I don't know. Pause, go back, watch as many times as you need. So I'm taking what's defined in my recipe as color A and color B. I'm going to trim both of these papers at the same exact time. And my first cut will be at 11.5. Now, if you're using this trimmer for the first time, what's critical is that you remember to push down on this clear bar because that's a unique feature of the trimmer that prevents the paper from moving when the blade comes down. Then cut at 10.25. So once again, stabilize. And then 6.25. So if you're not as comfortable with finding your measurements quickly, just take your time. So 6.25. You will get better and better at it. Now rotate the 6.25 by 12. We'll cut horizontally at 8.5. and 4.25. Okay, these pieces are the same size. I'll set those aside. I'm going to just put them in a accordion pocket file to keep them out of my way. Now we have this narrow little strip. We're going to do some clever cutting here and you'll see why in a moment. So the first cut will be horizontally at 3.25. And then rotate the piece in the trimmer base 1 turn and cut at 2.75. Now what just happened was we created, well, it's not a scrap, it's a piece we're actually going to use, but I'll set it aside. And then we created 2 larger and 2 smaller panels. Watch what happens. They interchange, so the 2 large ones are here, and then the 2 smaller panels we just made nest perfectly into those spots. Isn't that cool? Okay, now we have another piece here. This is 4 by 12. We'll trim this horizontally at 6 inches. I'll put these pieces aside, those 4 4x6s. And then we also have 2 sets of strips. So in the end, 1 dark will go on the light green and 1 light green will go on the dark green to make a companion strip for anchoring, which is an important item in making the waterfall mechanism. Okay, so the next, I'm going to use a black plane. Again, this is just a designer's choice, so if you've got paper in your stash, just grab another sheet. Make sure that the grain direction is dipping easily top to bottom when you put this in the trimmer. So to find that, just always hold on the edge of the paper. Watch how it behaves. Here it's very stiff. If I hold by this edge, it's very flexible, so that's the grain direction we want it to be in our trimmer. So we'll make several cuts here. The first one is at 11. And then 10, 8, 6, and 3. Now the piece you just created plus the one most recently too at that same time, they should be the same width. They're both 3 by 12. We're going to trim them at the same time horizontally at 9, 6, and 3. Okay, so you just made a pile of 8 3-inch squares. Cool. Then you have these 2 narrow strips. They're both 2 by 12. Take one of them and trim it at 9. This smaller piece is actually a scrap, and then you have these 2 other 2-inch pieces. Just set those aside. Those become the mechanism. And then you have these 2 other 1-inch strips. Let me show you something cool that just happened. We created a triple border strip here. So we have the larger light green, then the medium-sized black, and then the smallest dark green, and vice versa. So you created a triple nesting strip. Of course, they don't have to be used all 3 together. They could be split up somehow on the page, but it's kind of neat how that worked out. Okay, that's all the trimming required, so I'm going to get rid of that, and we'll start assembling our mechanism. The next thing you'll need is a score pal or a score board, something to score with. If you had to, you could get away with a ruler. And we're going to take that 2 by 12-inch piece that we trimmed last, and put quite a few score lines in here. Okay, so they're going to be 3/4 of an inch apart, and our first one will be at 2.5 inches. Then 3 1/4, 4, 4 3/4, 5 1/2, 6 1/4, 7, 7 3/4. Again, if I went too fast, just go ahead and pause, go back, do what you have to do in order to get those numbers. But again, they're just 3/4 of an inch apart. Okay, and then you can see you have this kind of neat area of scoring. If you would like, you can go ahead and just do a pre-fold on each one. Make sure that you're burying the bump. So the bump of that score line is on the underside here, and we're just folding that all in, just making our little creases to start to prepare our mechanism to function. Beautiful. Okay, then what I want you to do is place this accordion so it's horizontally on your work surface, and notice that there's this longer, skinnier area here. So this is the shorter spot. Here's a long spot. I'm going to take this additional 2 by 9-inch piece and use it to extend the length of this area here into a longer section. Okay, so here I've got my what would have been the bumps of my score lines facing up, and this is where I'm going to add my extender. To add it, I'm going to use Club Scrap's bookbinding glue in a needle tipped applicator. The wet glue allows me to be able to adjust this piece on here till it's perfect, and it will make sure it stays put for good. Okay, just align it perfectly so it's nice and level, and it is looking good. Pay special attention to this area here because this is something that can get caught on your anchoring strip, and you want to make sure that it's nice and secure at that spot. Okay, so then what we're going to do is, this is kind of how the accordion will end up living, or how this mechanism ends up staying on your page. Go to the pile of things that you trimmed earlier and find all of the squares. So now that we've added this extension, I'll just flip things over. So this smaller area is here, and you've got like a mountain fold to the left of it. You can begin by putting some bookbinding glue just within the scored area. This area measures 2.5 by 2. Then I'm going to center one of these 3-inch squares right over the spot, making sure it doesn't go into the score line. So here's my score, and here's my placement of my first square. That's not so hard. You can make sure that it's looking good. Now every square that you place after this should be level and even with the initial placement. So I'm going to add some adhesive to the next scored area. So remember, this is a 3/4 inch area. And I'll place another square right over the top of that, making sure that you don't go past the score line, because if you do that, then you lose functionality in your waterfall. Now, if you want, you can just bend back to make sure that you're flush with that edge. That's always a great way to make sure. And again, a reason why I am working with this wet glue is it gives me that adjustment time. Obviously, I'm continuing on with the same process. Make sure you're level with your neighboring square. I see here I wasn't quite level. And I was able to adjust that and make sure that you don't go past the score line so that you can keep your functionality going. You'll continue on by attaching all the remaining squares in the exact same fashion. Just add the glue to the 3/4 inch scored area and then place your square on top of that glue, making sure you're not in the score line area at all and that you're level top to bottom with the previous squares. And if you want to speed things along, you can apply glue to more than one area at a time. This is only when you have a lot more confidence in what you're doing. So the good news is, this is it. This is the waterfall. This is what's going to happen here. Now all we have left to do is take the pieces that we've already trimmed, assemble them on our double page spread, and install the mechanism in a way that's going to work. So let's take the 2 pieces of paper we've chosen to be the base of our layout and put them horizontally side by side in front of you. And next we can grab the strips, those nesting small pieces, and then we have 2 sets, or 2 sizes I should say, of photo mats as well, so we can prepare those. This is really neat how this happened. When we were trimming earlier, we trimmed a set of larger 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and we also trimmed a set of 4 by 6s, and all of those nest together beautifully. So you can just decide, where you want these pieces to live and arrange them any way you like. Now, in the recipe or in instructions, there is just one suggestion for how you can put this whole thing together. But of course, there are tons of ways you can interpret that. So we're going to, in this case, begin with our triple nested border going across the bottom as an anchoring device for a horizontal photo. We'll go light green, dark green combo. That'll rest here. And then we'll take the opposite colors and use those as vertical mats on the left side. And because they are going to be tilted, just always remember your best practices for tilted mats. So these aren't glued down yet, but just make sure that you don't have your corners touching like this, like the tip of the corner. Make sure they're offset in height and then tilted just slightly. Okay, so this has room for embellishment and whatever else you want to add, of course. And then just to sort of temporarily position all of this, we'll take our other border and put it vertically along the right edge to balance out what's happening on the lower left here. We'll put our mechanism, our mechanism will run across the top of the page. And then we will also have a vertical photo and then 2 horizontal accent photo spots. Now you have this piece as a scrap, can be used for anything, and then these pieces could maybe grow up to become something to help you create a pull tab on the right edge of your mechanism. Now, how does all this get attached? Well, first, I'm going to be nesting these 3 pieces together. If you would like, you can use your bookbinding glue or just your favorite adhesive. For things smaller than a 1/2 inch or 1/2 inch or less, I like to use bookbinding glue just because it's easiest. And then I will center that on there carefully and repeat that for the next layer. Lovely. Okay, so the final step basically is to determine where exactly you want this piece to live. The critical thing is to not put any adhesive behind where this part of the mechanism functions. So when you attach, I always like to have things like know where they're going to end up being before I attach them. So I'd say this is a pretty good spot for my vertical strip. So to install your mechanism, you'll take it, and if you want, you can have it open and just picture exactly where you want it to be on your layout. And then I'm going to put this strip right over the top of this long section. And then close it. I want the end of my last page in the waterfall to, let's just say, line up with the edge of the black strip here. Right about there. And that will get attached. So I think the best way to do that is to just open this back up. And I'm going to apply adhesive to the entire end of this page way over here. So that's, this doesn't go anywhere. I'll close that back over, making sure my positioning is kind of where I want it. And I can line up the edge of this page with the edge of the strip, and that keeps it nice and level as well. And now I can attach this to my layout, but what, again, I have to be very aware of is that we don't put any adhesive around where this mechanism is moving back and forth. So I will apply some glue in this area. Don't even want to get too close to that. And this other area here. Okay, keeping track of everything where you want it to be. Trying to make sure I'm level. I should probably have a grid ruler handy. Okay, so there's adhesive under this area and this area, nothing underneath this area, which allows the movement then. So now I can test my movement, and sure enough, I have a beautiful waterfall occurring here with the help of my anchoring strip and the mechanism. Let's take a look at how I finished up this Fly a Kite layout by adding some of the items that came from the collection to the pages. So here we have the photos added, and then simply some strips from the sheet of cut-aparts that match this collection. I was also able to grab some kite embellishments from the sheet of cut-aparts, as well as a journaling prompt and some of the elements used to decorate the waterfall. So remember when I told you about these little pieces? I just cut a small section of one of these pieces and used it as a pull tab. This just brings the eye to the spot, so when you pull, then you know that you're going to be able to see something exciting. And here are some burrowing owls. You can put a picture on either side of your waterfall, other embellishments, whatever you want. But what I have found is that you need to have quite a few pictures from something to fill a waterfall. It really gives you so much real estate. And that's one of the wonderful things about the Waterfall Wonder. Well, I hope it makes sense for you and how to assemble this page and you give it a try. I'm going to show you one other variation that I created with the aviary collection. Now this is going back a little bit, but this is so much fun. Now I almost joke and call this the right-handed waterfall, whereas this is the lefty waterfall, because the page is kind of, the design is flipped, and I've got the left edge side here, and look at how cool that is. I just love how this turned out, and showcases tons of pictures from my European river cruise that I did. In this case, I created a pull tab from a little tab punch from using the scraps that were left over from sheets A and B that I trimmed. And so from the aviary collection, I used the red and the aqua. The orange. No, it was the red and the aqua for papers A and B, and then that beautiful orange shade for the mechanism, and then the other border strips. And again, it gave me tons of real estate for a trip where I have just stacks and stacks of photos that I want to scrapbook. So this is definitely ideal. I'm pretty sure I'm going to make another one with a vertical mechanism as well. Thanks for joining me for the Waterfall Wonder workshop. I hope you found it to be quite wonderful. I'll see you next time.